Everyone talks about how buying a foreclosure is like the holy grail of getting a deal. But you know what? There's very few people out there that are telling you the truth about buying a foreclosure. I've flipped homes for 15 years, bought and sold hundreds of properties. Most of them I've flipped, others I've helped clients buy and sell. And you know what? I've never helped a client buy or have bought myself a foreclosure. Why? Well, I'm gonna give you the top 5 reasons why in this video you probably don't wanna buy a foreclosure. I've had a lot of bumps in this road of the real estate game, and really I just want to help accelerate your path so you can learn from my mistakes. And I'm going to give you this list of 5 here. It's not the be all end all, but number 1 is so ridiculously silly, you're going to want to stay tuned. Number 5 is that you actually don't know how to buy a foreclosure, and you know what? Most people don't, not even most real estate agents. So there's a reality here that, people just say go buy a foreclosure. Well, what does that mean? Do you know how many stages there are to the foreclosure process? There's typically 3, right? There's pre-foreclosure, there's foreclosure, there's the auction, and if it doesn't sell at the auction, it becomes a bank-owned property. So how do you actually buy one? Well, depending on the stage that you're in, if it's in pre-foreclosure, you have to get a list of these properties. You can get them from an agent. Sometimes you can pay a lot of sources out there to get you a pre-foreclosure list. Then you have to market to them, right? You have to send them mailers. You have to skip trace their phone numbers. You have to call them. You have to text them. You have to piss people off and be like, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you've missed a few payments, but I want to buy your house, right? It's a tough business to get into. And I'll tell you the truth right now, when it comes to marketing for sellers like that, expect to spend on average $5,000 to $7,000 per every single one deal. So unless you're willing to do that work to put the money into it, it's not even worth it, okay? Then you have stage number 2 where people are in actual foreclosure, right? That's where the bank has issued the NED and hey, there's gonna be an auction date set here in a handful of months, right? Well, at that point, buying it is the same as in stage number 1. Gotta call them up, say, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you've missed a lot of payments, but I wanna buy your house. Still rather uncomfortable. You gotta put a lot of legwork into it. Most real estate agents will not do that legwork for you. They're not just paid enough to do it, right? And then the third is, it'll go to auction, right? And you can be a buyer there, and you have to have cash on hand, right? You can't go walk through these properties before they go up on the market. You just got to be ready to buy now. Well, if it doesn't sell, if let's say the seller owes too much, it becomes what they call a bank-owned property. Then at that point, they might do some work to it. They'll put it on the MLS. Now you can buy it as a foreclosure, right? That's what most people mean when they say they're going to buy a foreclosure. They mean they're going to buy a bank-owned property, okay? So if you're not willing to go through all of these headaches for it, it's just kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. So I just want you to know what you're getting into. Now, number 4 is actually 40% of all bank-owned properties that go onto the MLS actually sell above market value. So what kind of deal is it if it's actually selling over market value? Now, why is that happening? Well, because there just aren't many properties for sale right now, especially bank-owned properties, and people think inherently there's a deal. So a lot of people go for them, and a lot of them end up selling for over asking price. So it's a little ridiculous, also not adding up to being this incredible deal. Number 3, buying one can actually be really lengthy and complicated, okay? So depending on the stage of foreclosure that somebody's in, it affects how you're able to offer on it. If it's in the pre-foreclosure status, it's just like a regular deal, okay? If it's actually in foreclosure, you have to use special contracts that most people don't know to buy a house that's in foreclosure. And if it's an REO property, there could be stuff that hangs up the deal for months on end, okay? So these are not just straightforward things. They are a lot more complicated than working with a traditional seller. Number 2, there's really no motivation for the bank to give you any sort of a deal. There's really not much negotiating power you have. Look, the bank has probably already been through the ringer on this property with the previous owner, lots of issues, and now they own it at X amount of dollars. They've already lost 50 to 100 grand on this thing. And now you come in and try to lowball them. There's just no reason for them to accept it, right? The bank has an equation. Every property that they end up owning, they put on the market for X amount of time, and if it doesn't sell, then they do a slow price drop, and they slow price drop it until they get an offer for it. And when it comes down to it, let's take this house that I'm walking through, for example, right now, okay? They've been on the market for a handful of months. This is just a traditional seller. From the looks of it, this house is really outdated. Probably gonna need minimally 150 grand worth of work, probably all the way up to about 350 to 400, depending on the finish level that you wanna take this property to. It's about 3,500 square feet. And they have dropped their price by about 25% so far. So here's the difference, right? I can go to this homeowner, and maybe it's an estate, someone inherited the property, okay? They've got it up on the market for X. I go in, say, hey, I'll buy it for Y. Maybe it's a little bit below what they're currently asking, right? And I go through, I can do an inspection, right? And then I can look at it and I can find out what the sewer line's doing, what real condition the roof is in, and just go, you know what, hey, my numbers really didn't pencil on this thing. I'm gonna need another 50 grand, 75 grand, whatever it is for A, B, and C reason. Then the sellers get together, maybe it's the kids that inherited the property, talk about it going, well, what are our options, right? We can either be on the market for another month, 2, 3, 4 months, maybe it doesn't even sell, maybe we have to fix it up ourselves, or we work with this person to be a buyer for it. A bank, you don't get that flexibility. It is what it is, it's as is, and most of the time the properties are not being taken care of. So foreclosures take way longer than you think. If you looked up the average time of foreclosure in your state, I think you would be shocked. Most states are north of 2 years to go into foreclosure for the bank to then repossess the house. Well, what happens during that 2 years? I can tell you. The property goes to hell in a handbasket, right? Nothing's being maintained. Maybe the sellers have moved out, or the previous owners, I should say, have moved out. And what if the heat isn't running? What if pipes have frozen, right? There's all sorts of things that can happen when a house is sitting vacant for 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And it adds to the risk factor, which is another reason why it just doesn't always make sense to try to go for a bank-owned foreclosure. Like, they're just not as good of a deal as you think. Now, if you are looking for a fixer-up yourself, I'm gonna give you something, right? Scan this QR code, or you can go with the link in the description below. I've got an ultimate fixer-upper buyer's guide for you, and this thing is super comprehensive, completely free, my gift to you. And this is literally everything I've learned over the last 15 years in this business, having flipped hundreds of homes, having worked with hundreds of buyers, wanting to buy a property, but not wanting to pay top of the market prices, right? Rehab calculators, cost estimators, timelines on as far as how long the rehabs are gonna take, ARV calculators to figure out what top of the market actually is like. This is comprehensive. This is everything that I use. All of it I still use on a daily basis. So all of that is absolutely yours for free. Just go ahead, scan that QR code. You can download it. If you got any questions, of course, you can reach out to me. And now, the number one reason why buying a foreclosure is just simply not a good idea is, well, there just aren't any, okay? Go onto your market right now, call your real estate agent, whoever, look on the MLS or realtor.com and look for REO properties. You're gonna be hard pressed to find any, okay? I know in my city right now, we got about 4 million people in the entire metro area. We've got about 25 currently on the market. That is nothing. Back in 2008, there would have been about 2,000 on the market right now. So that old adage of like, find yourself a deal from a foreclosure, that is market dependent and up to what the market is doing. And in 2008, that was a possibility. But today, like, it's just not an option. And if you are wondering how much it does cost to update a property, maybe you and your significant other are having battles over it like we all have in the past with buying a house that needs work, check out this video. I'm gonna break down all the costs that you should expect when buying a fixer-upper property.